Winter storms operate as a national stress test, not only for weather preparedness, but for the entire structure of governance, infrastructure, and public responsibility. When temperatures plunge and snow blanket cities, the country is forced into a real time examination of how well its systems function under pressure. Roads reveal whether maintenance budgets were sufficient. Power grids expose years of deferred upgrades. Emergency response systems show whether coordination between federal, state, and local authorities is efficient or fragmented. Unlike political debates that remain theoretical, a winter storm delivers immediate, measurable consequences that no administration or institution can ignore. The transportation network becomes one of the first indicators of readiness. Airports, rail systems, and highways are designed to operate with precision, but extreme weather quickly disrupts this balance. When runways freeze, trains slow, and highways become hazardous, the economic ripple effect spreads rapidly. Workers cannot reach jobs, goods are delayed, and businesses face unexpected losses. These disruptions demonstrate that mobility is not merely a convenience, but a foundation of economic stability. And when that foundation weakens, the impact is felt across industries and communities simultaneously. Energy systems face even greater pressure during winter storms. Heating demand surges while ice and wind threaten power lines and substations. Rolling blackouts and outages highlight how vulnerable centralized grids can be when stretched beyond capacity. Communities without backup systems experience the harshest outcomes, including frozen pipes, unsafe indoor temperatures, and disrupted medical equipment. This reveals a deeper structural issue. Resilience is not evenly distributed. Some neighborhoods recover quickly, while others remain without power for days, illustrating how access to reliable energy is closely tied to investment priorities and regional inequality. Healthcare and emergency services also become part of this national test. Hospitals see increased admissions due to weather related injuries, respiratory issues, and cold exposure. Ambulances struggle through blocked roads, and first responders operate under dangerous conditions to reach those in need. Their ability to perform effectively depends on training, staffing levels, and resource availability, all of which are shaped long before the storm arrives. When these systems falter, it becomes clear that preparedness is not built overnight, but through consistent funding and long term planning. Public communication plays a critical role as well. Accurate forecasts, timely warnings, and clear instructions can prevent panic and reduce risk. When messaging is inconsistent or delayed, confusion spreads and trust erodes. This demonstrates that crisis management is not only about physical infrastructure, but also about information systems and leadership credibility. A winter storm, in this sense, becomes a mirror reflecting how well institutions communicate with the public and whether citizens feel confident in official guidance. At its core, this stress test exposes the difference between reactive responses and proactive strategies. Nations that invest in resilient infrastructure, coordinated emergency planning, and equitable resource distribution are better equipped to absorb shocks. Those that rely on temporary fixes and short term solutions face repeated failures each winter season, revealing vulnerabilities that grow more visible with every passing storm. Hidden within every winter storm is a pattern of inequality that often goes unnoticed in headline coverage. While media reports focus on snowfall totals and temperature records, the deeper reality is that the burden of extreme weather is not shared equally. Economic status, housing conditions, access to transportation, and job security determine how safely and comfortably people can endure a storm. For many families, a winter storm is not an inconvenience, but a crisis that threatens income, health, and basic survival. Working class communities are frequently the first to feel the impact. Many residents live in older buildings with poor insulation and outdated heating systems, making it harder to stay warm when temperatures drop. High energy costs force families to choose between heating and other necessities, turning cold weather into a financial strain. Renters, in particular, have limited control over repairs and upgrades, leaving them dependent on landlords who may delay maintenance or fail to address safety issues. This creates a situation where the quality of shelter becomes a reflection of economic standing rather than a guaranteed standard of living. Employment conditions also shape vulnerability. Millions of workers hold hourly or contract jobs without paid leave, meaning that staying home during dangerous weather often results in lost wages. When roads are icy and public transportation is disrupted, these workers face an impossible choice between personal safety and financial stability. Meanwhile, professionals with remote work options and flexible schedules remain largely insulated from these risks. The storm, therefore, draws a clear line between those who can afford to prioritize safety and those who must prioritize survival. Homeless populations experience the harshest consequences of winter weather. Shelters frequently operate at or near capacity, and emergency accommodations are not always sufficient to meet demand. Exposure to extreme cold increases the risk of illness and injury, placing additional strain on public health systems. This reality highlights a broader social failure. When basic housing needs remain unmet, natural weather events transform into life-threatening emergencies. Elderly individuals and people with disabilities also face heightened risk during winter storms. Limited mobility makes evacuation difficult, and reliance on medical equipment powered by electricity creates serious danger during outages. Social isolation can prevent timely assistance, especially in rural or underserved areas. These factors reveal how demographic vulnerabilities intersect with economic inequality, compounding the effects of extreme weather on already at-risk populations. Even access to information plays a role in this hidden inequality. Communities with limited internet connectivity, language barriers, or reduced trust in institutions may not receive or fully understand emergency alerts. This gap in communication further widens the divide between those who can prepare effectively and those who are left behind. A winter storm, in this sense, becomes more than a meteorological event. It becomes a social mirror reflecting the unequal distribution of resources, opportunities, and protection across society. Infrastructure and public investment failures become painfully visible when a winter storm strikes. What appears to be a natural disaster often reveals years of political neglect and economic short-sightedness. Roads that crumble under snowplows, bridges that freeze into hazardous crossings, and power grids that collapse under heavy demand are not sudden accidents. They are the result of long-term underfunding, delayed maintenance, and a pattern of prioritizing short-term savings over long-term stability. Each storm pulls back the curtain on decisions made far from public attention, but felt immediately by millions of people. Transportation infrastructure is one of the clearest examples. In many regions, road networks rely on outdated materials and insufficient drainage systems that fail under extreme conditions. Snow removal budgets are often trimmed during mild winters, leaving cities unprepared when severe weather returns. Public transit systems, already operating under financial strain, face equipment failures and service disruptions that isolate communities and disrupt daily life. When workers cannot commute and emergency vehicles face delays, the economic and human cost multiplies rapidly. Energy infrastructure presents an even more critical challenge. Power grids in many parts of the country were built decades ago for a climate that no longer exists. As heating demand surges during cold spells, transformers and transmission lines operate near maximum capacity. Without modernization and decentralization, these systems remain vulnerable to cascading failures. When outages occur, they do not only affect household comfort, they interrupt hospital operations, shut down water treatment plants, and disrupt communication networks, demonstrating how deeply interconnected modern infrastructure has become. Public investment patterns further deepen these challenges. Budget cuts to infrastructure projects are frequently justified as fiscal responsibility, but they often shift costs into the future, where repairs become more expensive and emergencies more severe. When governments rely on temporary fixes rather than comprehensive solutions, they create a cycle of repeated breakdowns. This cycle benefits private contractors through emergency repair contracts while leaving communities trapped in recurring vulnerability. The contrast between well funded and underfunded regions highlights the unequal distribution of infrastructure quality. Wealthier areas often recover faster due to better maintained systems and greater access to resources, while poorer communities face prolonged outages and slower repairs. This imbalance reinforces regional inequality and undermines national resilience. A winter storm, therefore, does more than test physical structures. It exposes the political choices that shape who is protected and who is left exposed when public systems are pushed to their limits. Essential workers carry the real burden during winter storms, sustaining society while facing conditions that most people are fortunate enough to avoid. When snow and ice paralyze cities, these workers step into hazardous environments to keep critical systems functioning. Utility crews repair downed power lines in freezing temperatures. Snowplow drivers clear roads through blinding storms. Healthcare staff report for extended shifts despite dangerous travel conditions. Emergency responders answer calls when others are urged to stay home. Their labor becomes the backbone of crisis response, yet their contributions often remain undervalued and underrecognized. The risk these workers face is not abstract. Long hours in extreme cold increase the likelihood of accidents, injuries, and exhaustion. Limited rest and high stress levels further compound these dangers. Despite this, many essential workers receive modest wages and limited benefits, reflecting a broader economic structure that prioritizes efficiency and cost cutting over worker protection. The contradiction is clear. Society depends on their labor during emergencies, yet fails to provide adequate compensation and safety measures that reflect the importance of their roles. Job insecurity adds another layer of pressure. Many workers in logistics, delivery services, and retail operations are classified as temporary or contract employees. During winter storms, they are often expected to continue working to maintain supply chains and meet consumer demand. Refusing to report to work can result in lost income or even job termination. This creates a power imbalance where workers are forced to choose between personal safety and economic survival, revealing how labor vulnerability becomes more pronounced in times of crisis. Healthcare workers experience particularly intense strain. Hospitals face increased patient volumes due to weather-related injuries, respiratory issues, and power-related emergencies. Nurses, doctors, and support staff often work double shifts, navigating staff shortages while maintaining patient care standards. The emotional toll of these conditions can be as heavy as the physical demands. Burnout, fatigue, and mental stress accumulate, yet the healthcare system continues to rely on individual sacrifice rather than systemic reform to manage crisis periods. Public sector workers, including sanitation staff and emergency management personnel, also confront resource limitations. Budget constraints often mean outdated equipment, insufficient staffing, and limited training opportunities. When storms hit, these workers must operate with tools and systems that may not be designed for extreme conditions. Their ability to respond effectively becomes a reflection of public investment choices rather than personal dedication alone. Despite these challenges, essential workers continue to demonstrate resilience and commitment. Communities witness their efforts firsthand, from restored power lines to reopened roads and functioning hospitals. However, recognition alone is not enough. Without structural changes that ensure fair wages, stronger labor protections, and safer working conditions, the burden placed on these workers will continue to grow with each passing winter storm, reinforcing a cycle in which those who give the most receive the least in return. Climate change and future storm preparedness are becoming inseparable issues in modern policy discussions. Winter storms are no longer predictable seasonal events that follow familiar patterns. Instead, they are increasingly intense, irregular, and disruptive, creating new challenges for communities and governments. Rising global temperatures alter atmospheric behavior, leading to shifts in precipitation patterns, stronger storm systems, and sudden temperature swings. These changes transform winter weather from a manageable seasonal condition into a growing threat that demands long-term planning rather than short-term reaction. Preparedness in this new climate reality requires a fundamental shift in how infrastructure and urban development are designed. Traditional systems were built for historical weather norms that no longer apply. Power grids, transportation networks, and housing standards must now account for extreme cold, heavy snowfall, and rapid freeze-thaw cycles. Without modernization, these systems will continue to fail under pressure. Investing in weather-resistant materials, decentralized energy sources, and smart grid technologies becomes essential for maintaining stability during future storms. Energy transition plays a critical role in storm resilience. Renewable energy sources, when paired with advanced storage systems, can reduce reliance on vulnerable centralized power plants. Microgrids and community-based energy solutions allow neighborhoods to maintain electricity during widespread outages. At the same time, Improving energy efficiency in buildings reduces overall demand during cold spells, easing strain on the grid. These strategies not only address climate concerns, but also strengthen the ability of communities to withstand extreme weather events. Urban planning must also adapt to changing climate conditions. Dense city layouts, aging drainage systems, and limited green spaces can worsen the effects of winter storms. Expanding green infrastructure, improving stormwater management, and designing walkable, transit-oriented neighborhoods enhance both environmental sustainability and public safety. Rural areas face different challenges, including long distances between services and limited emergency access, requiring tailored preparedness strategies that reflect regional realities. Community engagement is another essential element of future preparedness. Public awareness campaigns, emergency training programs, and local response networks empower residents to take proactive steps before storms arrive. When communities understand risk factors and response procedures, they become active participants in resilience rather than passive victims of disaster. This shared responsibility strengthens social cohesion and improves overall response effectiveness. Policy coordination at the national, state, and local levels is necessary to implement these changes. Fragmented decision making leads to inconsistent standards and uneven protection. A unified approach ensures that resources are distributed strategically and that preparedness efforts align with scientific data and long-term climate projections. Without this coordination, adaptation efforts remain limited and reactive. Climate change is not a distant threat, but a present reality shaping winter weather today, and the choices made now will determine whether future generations face repeated crises or inherit systems capable of withstanding the storms ahead.